for example, a new technology coming in. I can quote you. I show you the rice field. I am from a very rural area. My grandmother, I grew up in a society where my grandmother and my auntie used to have specific roles in agriculture. Somebody would do planting, the man would do something else. And then in 1979, I came back and I saw the first harvesting machine in Perlis. And I thought, like my grandmother, how wonderful life is. And I came back later, after my PhD, and I realized, 5 years down the road, my grandmother lost her control of land. She no longer worked in the rice field because it's now technologized. And when it's technology, who controls the technology? Suddenly the man controls the technology. They have no more say. So now they've got to go and find some other small businesses to do. Now that to me is a policy that did not take gender perspective. It did not ask what would be the impact of this policy on the men and the women. Of course, the household life becomes better. You have more money, now no longer wood, now it's brick. But she has lost control of her life, part of her life. Now, that to me is very, very important incident. Often our assumptions are not in sync with the lived realities. And gender research says, look at the reality, not at hypotheses, not at what you want to be, you dream of. For example, we say, head of households. In Perlis, you want to get subsidy, for example. The head of the household is who? On the paper. Who is the head of the household? Man. So the one who can get subsidy is who? Man. But in reality, in real life, women are also head of many households. By sometimes the man don't work. She's the one who's actually finding income, supporting the family, putting the children through school and universities. So this is not, in reality, it's so different from what is on the form. So if you do research and you teach a student, head of the household, man, that's what data, that's the data you're going to get. You're not going to get the real data that more than 50% perhaps of the women in Thailand are actually the real head of the household. So peasant studies, for example, they've done a meta-analysis of peasant studies, and they found out that actually all this research on peasant studies ignore the roles of women. They look at women as complementary to the role of men. And therefore, their real contribution becomes invisible. Definition of work. What is your work? Well, I'm a professor. Take a professor. What is your work? Well, I'm only a housewife. So you take a housewife. Housewife doesn't work. Yes? Yes or no? No, they work all the time. You take that role and now you get an Indonesian maid or Thai maid and you pay. And suddenly this money, remittances and contribution worth billions of ringgit and dollars and baht to Thailand and Philippines and whatever else. So when you define work as only productive work, only when you work in the formal sector, then you're ignoring the non-formal sector. In your calculation for GDP, GNP, planning over, 10 million plan, 11 million plan, 9 million plan. You don't consider, you don't even value, you don't even know how much it is worth. Now this becomes critical for countries which are just developing. And the productive sector, the traditional productive sector is still very, very small. So you ignore the many percent who are now contributing to the economy, particularly I think in countries like Thailand. Many women work in the non-formal sector, making all these little cookies, that you eat, for example. And then we then say reproductive role. And what is a reproductive role? They're not very important. They're not really work. What is that? Taking care of the children, getting pregnant, taking care of children, giving milk, making sure they eat and washing their clothes. These are just housework. They're not really important. That is how we define work. So how do you define work? Which is really both an ontological question as well as epistemological question. Becomes very, very important. Then this question of impact development, impact of health on men and women is different. Why? How does your 30 baht for insurance for all in Thailand affect the health of men and women? How would an insurance system of health that is now penetrating my healthcare in my country is going to affect men and women, particularly poor men and poor women? Will they affect them same or will it be different? And these are the kind of questions we will ask. And why is this important? Because we say research is to find truth. But how can we say it is truth when this truth is a warped reality? It's not the real reality, it's a warped reality. And then we say to our students, you must be ethical when you do research. I challenge you. I say, how can you call yourself to be ethical in doing research? The whole ethics has got to come in with a different dimension of what is ethics at the end of the day. The top 10 characteristics of gender research is that 1, you will take into account gender roles and relationships. Question of power, question of resources, who have what, who's doing what, must be taken into account. You must start to do gender analysis. What? How to do gender analysis is something that we have to learn. You must begin with sex disaggregated data. I ask you tomorrow, can you tell me how many percent of women malnourished, how many percent of men malnourished in Thailand? I don't think you have. You have an overall figure, just like in Malaysia. Now, you need to disaggregate the sex, and later on aggregate them to class and ethnic group. Then it will give you the real picture of what is really going on. So, you need this sex disaggregated data, then you need to do the gender analysis. Why are they different? Why are they different? Is it because of their sex? Or is it because of the norms and values and the rules and blah blah blah, expectations of society, resources, and so forth and so on, that makes it different in the society? Gender versus women. So beware of this. That when you do research on women, it is not necessarily a gender research. You are just doing research on women, that's all. You can use a very traditional framework to look at women with a very traditional definition of what women should do. And that's not gender. It's very human specific, that's all, or man specific. And you need to now also intersect gender with class, with ethnicity, age, sexuality, religion, because we are not homogeneous. We cannot say, women in Thailand, excuse me, there are so many groups of women in Thailand. The women in Thailand, Petani, poor rich. Women in urban cities in Bangkok, poor rich. They are quite different. Similarly with men, we are not homogeneous. And there must be inclusion versus diversity. We need to try to involve actors, target groups, and we must make sure we pay attention to marginalized groups, people whose voices are not heard, the poor, sex workers whose voices never come into policy making, for example, the transgender group, or any other group that are marginalized within a certain society. We must change research process. This is another characteristic. You cannot just be doing the same way of collecting data. You have to think about other ways of collecting data. Sometimes you have to do multiple methods in collecting data. But what is important is in the process, the way you collect data also empowers the participant on issues that they never thought of. And this is something new. And I'm very, very concerned about this. If I go into a field and I think I'm just exploiting people by getting data, I write my fantastic paper, send to Oxford Journal or whatever, I come home and the payment is still the same, to me, I'm not really being ethical there. There must be critique of the standard science and social science research theories and methods, and these I mentioned before. We need to critique it. And it must be interdisciplinary. And this fits very well in my university. It tries to say everything must be interdisciplinary, simply because problems in the society are actually multidimensional and not just one perspective. There must be an analysis of power hierarchies, whether you're talking about within a household, in the community, or in the country. You must also note that as a researcher, you actually have a lot of power. I go and say, my name is Professor Datin, and I wear all my gold and my silk dress, and I go to a rural village. Already excuse me, you sit on the chair. The power relation between the researcher and the participant must be equalized as much as possible. And our students must develop this kind of sensitivity. And then they must use these non-traditional qualitative research methods. For example, life stories, phenomenology, that many of us are not very familiar. Yeah? But it must not just be research for you to publish. And gender research says you must make sure your data have some political, in a very broad sense, implication. If I do my violence against women, I cannot simply publish 20 articles from them and smile after that because I get all the impact factors that I want. Because the real impact of that research must be channeled to the policy decision makers. What would it mean to the NGOs who work with violence against women? And it must lead to some social change in the society. Maybe not today, but eventually it will lead to social change. So, engendering research in short makes a difference to the what, the how, the who, where, and when of the research process. I'll give you now an example from health. That's my bias, okay, in health. For example, say you want to study factors underlying high levels of stillbirth and low birth weight in any area in Petani. If you ask the present thinking, they will only look at certain things, A, B, C, D. There are certain standard things that look for stillbirth and low birth weight, particularly from a very biomedical model. But actually, if you're putting in the gender issue, which means you must know some of the gender issues, the social issues in the society, you must include these factors, for example, the workload of women. That have never been included before in the study of low birth weight and stillbirth. Why is workload important? Because when women work non-stop, like my mother, when I came back, I began to study what was my mother's role, and her roles, and how many hours did she rest, for years and years and years. She only rested 4 hours every day, for years and years and years. So she died at the age of 65, or 63, something like that. That workload would not give any pregnant women enough time for her to rest, enough time for oxygen and food to flow to the fetus. Very important, especially when you do manual tasks, till late in pregnancy. Experience of domestic violence is very critical. And they've done studies using this framework, they found out there's a very strong correlation to low birth weight and stillbirth. Inadequate take of nutritious food, particularly if you come from culture that segregates food. Food A, protein, gives to men first. After that, food B, you can tell that I'm the one who eat first in my family from the sides. So you can tell that. Otherwise, nutritious food. In many societies, food is also segregated by gender. You take first, I'll take only the bones after that. So I'm so sorry, I cannot take the bones. I don't want to choke on the bone, I'll take the first head of the fish, you can have the tail. Whether the pregnancy was wanted or planned. When you have 12 children in England, though you look at the average figure, total fertility rate is only 3.5, which is still the highest in Malaysia. But then I deal with women who have 12 children, 14 children, 16 children. Are these children planned, unwanted? If they are unwanted, maybe then women may not want to take care anymore of their health. You look at sex composition of children. How many boys, how many girls? In society where men becomes, it's important to have the boys. If you don't have boys, I may marry again 2, 3, 4 times, 5, 6 who knows. Then it becomes very, very important to look at the sex composition of previous children. But these are questions that would never come up in the traditional framework. Because these are gendered questions. How do you engender research? Well, when you take literature review, you must make sure that your literature review is also work done from key people in community or population under your study. And this is going to be very difficult if you have to do literature review, particularly in areas where such research is not yet been done. Or you try to gather as much as information from them. You may need to modify your variables, like I said. You may need new variables, you may need to modify your variables. Sample size, of course, like any other research, must be large enough for you to permit analysis of subcategories, because now you are trying to intersect with class, with ethnic group, so your samples has got to be quite big, the cells otherwise become so small. And you need to integrate qualitative methods. If you use quantitative methods, you must try to integrate qualitative methods at different stages of your research. It may be in the beginning, because you want to develop new variables. It may be in the middle, as you get more data, you find, oh, it's not answering the question. It may be at the end, so or it may be a full cycle of qualitative coming in the middle, and whatever phases that you are doing research. And if your studies require informed consent, you must make sure that informed consent comes from the women and not the husband. Our experience of doing domestic violence research, if the husband is there, he wants to sign. And if you now say men must come into the clinic for decision making in terms of family planning, very likely the man will just say, I will decide, oh, never mind, you keep quiet. I've seen this happening in their life. I've been there in the clinics with some participation. And particularly if you are researching sensitive topic like reproductive tract infection, sexually transmitted disease, when it involves man-woman relationship, it becomes very, very problematic. Who? Talking only to men or only to women is a question that we have to ask. But if, for example, the issues involve both of them, talking to only one group will not help. We did, for example, for years, pap smear studies in Malaysia had always been concentrated only on the women. Why? Because women are the ones who go for pap smear screening for cervical cancer. We decided, hey, let's put in the gender field. And said, we must talk to the men. At first, the university asked me, why you want to talk to men? This costs money. The usual thing. You don't know what you're cutting. And I said, no, I want to talk to the men because pap smear, cervical cancer is also linked and attributed to human papillomavirus. And human papillomavirus, I'm so sorry, men have lots and lots of it. They don't get saliva acid to have cervix, but they pass it to their wives. So we need to know from the men their understanding and their perspective and blah, 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 blah. So sometimes we need to do that, to choose who to talk about. And all these issues, contraception, blah, blah, blah. We may want to get information from different age groups and social groups of women and men, because gender relations do change over time. Gender relations of my father, mother was different compared to my relation with my husband, for example. So we need to get different groups of people. So it becomes a bit more inclusive. Because generations differ, social groups differ. When and where? So the timing of data collection will have to take gender roles into consideration. For example, when are men more likely to be available? Depending on the role they play. If they, for example, they go to Kuala Lumpur or Singapore to work, when are you going to get to talk to them? Because they are in Singapore. Otherwise, you cannot collect the data. So it's very tied to the roles, the availability. When can women speak in privacy and not with other people around? What kind of roles they play? Yeah? So this kind of type of data collection becomes very, very important. And also the place most actively. For violence against women, in my session, I will tell you the challenge. Because violence against women is a very, very sensitive issue. And you cannot interview women with the husbands around. Because when you leave, she probably will get wet after that. So privacy becomes very, very critical, and ethical issues become very, very critical. So sometimes you've got to go back twice, 3 times, 4 times, making sure the husband, and have planned strategy. What if in the middle of the interview the husband comes back, what do you do? Oh, you've got to leave up a magic paper. So that she doesn't know you're talking about violence against women. Huh? Things like that. So the most appropriate is planning that. So, and gender research, therefore, is gender sensitive. And what do I mean? And why do we need that? Simple. We are not homogeneous. Population is not homogeneous. Women are not homogeneous. Men are not homogeneous. And the fact that it intersects with ethnicity, class, and so on. Our choice of research topic is also part of the engendered research process. Like I said, if university thinks violence against women is not important, because they don't understand language. They don't think it's important. I think it's important because I deal with battered women in the society. So here, and as a researcher, what do I want to do? The research topic itself must have relevance to social transformation. Otherwise, if your money is limited, why are you doing that particular research? If it's not going to change anything in society. So So the choice of research topic must also be phrased within the framework of gender. The conceptual framework, when we make our research, we have to have conceptual framework. What kind of conceptual framework do we have? What variables? And, more importantly, what indicators? Because now you cannot rely on just normal indicators. For example, Malaysia. Malaysia is popular, Malaysia body. We can do a lot of things. And one of the things we're famous for is for introducing microcredit programs in the region, in our university. But in Malaysia, the success indicator of microcredit is one, the number of women who take loan. Second, the success is the ability of the women to pay loan. Now, these indicators come from the banks. They have nothing to do, really, very much with empowerment of women. So if you have a gender framework, you've got to challenge that. You have to say, are these the only indicators for you to measure empowerment? There must be something else. So you have to develop new indicators, new variables that will, challenge them. The analytical framework, what kind of analysis do you do? How do you analyze this data? And the language that you use, and the types of publication and dissemination of findings. For example, I think very strongly that I have to go back to the community to share the research findings, to the women, to call back groups of women to listen to the data that we have obtained. But where is the money going to come from? Because this is no longer part of your research. It's not part of the university's funding system. So the whole politics of funding for gender research is problematic. What are the benefits of gender research? Definitely because you put on your 3D, 4D, 5D lens, gendered lens, you have a new perspective about the problem. What is not work now is work. What is considered productive is not so productive after all. That reproductive is also important. So you have new perspectives for looking at things. And I think this is important to teach our students, particularly with the complexity of our society now. We have different questions, new and more questions that we thought we could never ask. And sometimes the funders ask you, rephrase your question, or too many questions. How can you ask? You go to ethics committee. Sometimes I think the ethics committee don't even know anything much about your research, but they sit in the ethics committee.